my strength this hour, Jesus. You're my deliverer, yes, you are, Jesus.
Court is now in session.
So many people no longer believe in the power of God. His church no longer looks like the book of Acts. That's evident. Because so many people make a mockery out of God's gifts, quite often when the power of God moves, either we believe there is some type of magic trick, science explains it away, someone is lying, or there is simply no explanation. The Holy Spirit never seems to get the credit. Well, on this day, I stand before you representing my client, the Holy Spirit, who is on trial, being accused of not being who he says he is, and not being able to do what he says he can do. Who is he? Some may ask. The Holy Spirit is the true power of God. He is the third person in the Trinity. His power was first recorded back in Genesis with creation. Oh yes, it was by his power we came into being. Even Jesus was recorded as saying, "You will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes down on you." And then he said, "Be my witness." So on this day, before this court, I will prove beyond a shadow of a doubt with my credible witness that the Holy Spirit still works in us and through us. She will testify that she received power from the Holy Spirit to achieve the impossible, which she wouldn't have been able to do on her own. Thank you.
May the witness be sworn in.
I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Please state your name and profession.
My name is Vivian Brown, and I am an educator.
Tell the jury what makes you a credible witness.
What makes me a credible witness? Well, first of all, I fear God. It's just that simple. I fear the one who can destroy both the body and the soul. I live to hear one day, "Job well done, Vivian." And that is enough for me to come before you today to testify on behalf of the Holy Spirit in hopes that my testimony will help someone else to know exactly who he is and what he can do in our lives. I love him dearly. He is truly a friend of mine, and he is most definitely my comforter. He's just so awesome. He's just awesome.
You talk about how much you love him and that he is your friend.
Yes, he is my friend, and I love him dearly.
So, couldn't you easily lie for him?
No. There's no need to lie on the Holy Spirit or lie for the Holy Spirit, because he is so pure and he is so holy. So there's simply no reason to lie. He has proven who he is and what he can do in our lives time and time again. The only thing he requires of me is to simply believe in him. He's so awesome.
I would like for you to go back on the day in question and tell us what happened.
Okay, so well, in order to go back to the day in question, I have to kind of go back a few days ahead of time so that you kind of understand what unfolded on that specific day. So it all started on a Sunday, late afternoon, when I received a phone call and someone needed for me to support them in a specific event where I needed to minister by way of dance. When I tell you my heart dropped, I was terrified at that point.
Why is that?
Well, I was terrified at that point because I knew that I wasn't in dance shape. Now, I do run throughout the week up to 2 miles daily, and I also work out with weights, but that is not dance shape. And the event was coming up for that Friday, which meant that I had only a few days to prepare a dance, and I hadn't danced in such a long time. And since I only had a few days, I became very nervous because I know how I dance, I know how hard I go, and I knew I was not in dance shape. So what happened was, once I received that phone call, I actually began to pray about it. I received some music, and I chose the song that I wanted to minister to. And since it was still like that, the evening of that Sunday, I decided to go ahead and, go downstairs into the room where I meet God when I am creating pieces for him to help me, and I began to pray about it. And I did do a little stretching at that time. Well, once the movements started flowing through me, flowing out, I started creating a piece. Well, I guess maybe it was around 6 o'clock, and this went through, I guess it was after 8 o'clock. So something, I know it was the Holy Spirit, kept telling me that was enough to stop. And I kept pushing. So I told you I was not in dance shape. I did stretch, but it wasn't enough. So I remember elevating at one point and trying to do a back lift. And at this point, my hamstring popped. Well, at that point, I just hit the floor. When I hit the floor, I fell on my side because I couldn't, it hurt so bad and it scared me so bad until I couldn't brace myself when I hit the floor. I just hit the floor, kind of like on my side. And so when that happened, right away, my ribs started hurting on the side. And I started crying out because the pain was so severe until it honestly felt like there was nothing there, that my hamstring or something had separated. And so I was really, really scared. So I was even, like I said, I was scared to even feel it. So at that point, I shouted out asking my husband to come and help me because I didn't know what happened to me. I've never sustained an injury of that magnitude before. And I've, throughout my life, I was an athlete, but I've never had that to happen. And so once I finally, he helped me upstairs, I couldn't walk. So once I finally got in bed late on that evening, when I tell you, I cried and cried and cried, because at that point I was in so much pain until I believed that I could not minister that Friday because of the pain. So that evening I took some pain medication, and the next day was Monday. I needed to go to work. So I went on ahead and went to work, but I had pain medication. So I kind of hopped along, and because I was still in pain, but it wasn't as bad. I had pain from like almost the top part of the back, the top part of my knee in the back, all the way up to the top of my waist. That's how far that muscle that runs down, it was just horrible. And then I had severe pain on my side. I told you I fell and I hit the floor, and once I did that, I bruised my rib. So I had a bruise on the outside of my on my side. And so I was just devastated at this point. I did not think that I would be able to minister. And so I was going to call the young lady that needed my support, and I did not want to do it. The Holy Spirit, my friend, said to just hold on, just hold on. And so that Monday one evening when I got home from work, I couldn't practice, I couldn't do anything. And so the Holy Spirit was telling me to just take it easy. The rest of the dance that I needed to put together, well, I wasn't halfway done at this point. I'm a perfectionist when it comes to ministry pieces. and I'm a perfectionist when it comes to God in that area, and I'm very specific with movements as He's given them to me. I have to get them right. So He had me to settle down. So I continued the piece in my head because I couldn't do the movements at all. It was too much pain at that time, even with the pain medication. So I went through a Monday afternoon, Monday evening, and then I laid back down after I did so many of the movements through my head. And then Tuesday came. Well, Tuesday I was still taking pain medication. I was hopping around at work with my side hurting me. I mean, my side was hurting me so bad until if I moved or twisted the wrong way, it felt like it just took my breath. It was like that. And so a lot of pain. So that Tuesday when I got home, I had the movements going through my head again. But on Tuesday, I felt like I could almost do a walkthrough, a light walkthrough of the piece. But I couldn't do it full out. So at this point on Tuesday, I was satisfied in not calling this young lady to tell her I couldn't do the piece. And so Wednesday went away. Thursday came. I was still having a problem with memorizing the piece that the Holy Spirit gave me because I wasn't doing it full out. So I wasn't really doing the movements. I was doing them in my mind. So on Thursday, I was really getting nervous because I kept forgetting different parts that He gave me, and I had to get those right. I was at that point asking the Holy Spirit to please help me and sustain me through this dance because it was Thursday. The piece had to be Friday. I was still in pain. I was fasting all week, meaning that I really limited the food, my intake of food. I didn't have any meats. I was down to veggies and fruits. So that Friday morning when I got up to go to the church, of course, whenever I minister, I don't eat anything before I minister. I just want the Holy Spirit. So I prayed all that morning. I kind of cried out to the Holy Spirit to please help me to make it through this ministry piece and to be able to support her the way that she needed it. And so that morning when I got there, I went back up into the pulpit and I prayed over it. And at that point, I asked God, I asked the Holy Spirit to please, if He would please, cover me and sustain me through this dance. At that point, I did not know how I was going to get through it because I was still in pain. There were certain ways it hurt me to move. But I knew that once I started, I couldn't focus on the pain. I had to focus on being the support that this young lady needed me to be, which meant that I couldn't focus on what was going on with this body. And I needed for the Holy Spirit to sustain me. So I asked Him that when I stepped in that pulpit, for Him to let everyone know who He was, who I belonged to, and I needed for Him to touch everyone through me when I ministered the dance that He gave me. That's what I needed for Him to do. When I stepped in that pulpit, I needed for Him to rise up. So this is what I prayed about when I stepped into the pulpit. This is what I asked Him to do. So I went back down to my room to change and to get ready to minister. So once it got to me needing to come up, I can't lie and say that I wasn't a little nervous because the ministry piece was still a little fuzzy and I hadn't really done it full out the way that I was taught. When you are practicing, you do everything full out as if you are actually ministering at that point. And I didn't. So I really was depending on Him and I couldn't let her down. I did not take any medication that night before because I did not want that in my system when I was ministering. And of course, I did not take anything that morning. I didn't even eat anything. So when it was finally time for me to minister, when I tell you, I felt the Holy Spirit coming upon me, letting me know, I got you, I got you. I was still fearful I have to admit, I was still fearful because I was getting up in front of all of these people and I needed it to be right. So I remember entering the pulpit, walking down the aisle, and I entered the pulpit. And once I got up there and I bowed my head down and the music started, and I said, let's go. I remember saying, let's go. I was talking to the Holy Spirit because at that point, he let me know that he was right there and he was ready. So I started the ministry piece and it was going well. I danced really, really hard. I need for him to come all the way through the tips of my finger, the top of my head, the sole of my feet, and my toenails. I need for him to be in every area of my body. And the best thing about ministering by way of dance is he can use you in a way to reach people as long as your spirit, as long as you are right and you prepare the right way, he can use you. So during that time, as I started going through the dance, I would say about midways through the dance, at that point I would say it went left. Guys, my leg popped again. I will never forget it. My leg popped again. I had no pain medication. At this point, everything was full out. I left it all on the floor. I said, this is it. When my leg popped, what was going through my mind was something said, drop to the floor. All of this is going on at the same time because I'm going through the piece. My leg popped again, the same way it happened on that Sunday night. And I wanted to just drop because I'm like, this is not going to be good. And so then the Holy Spirit said, keep going. So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, how am I going to keep going? This is my muscle. I can't keep going. I kept going. I kept going.
So how do you know it wasn't the adrenaline that sustained you throughout the dance?
The Holy Spirit sustained me. It was not adrenaline. Adrenaline. And I tell you why. Let me give you an example. When you have an athlete that's running track, and he has a lot of adrenaline, of course, as the race is starting. Well, if he starts running and his leg pops, he pulls a muscle, adrenaline is not going to take him through the finish line. He's going to pull up. He has no choice because that adrenaline cannot sustain that muscle for him. Same thing with me. Adrenaline, let me make this perfectly clear. Adrenaline had nothing to do with me making it through this piece. It was nothing but the Holy Spirit. So as I continued on during this piece, guys, at this point, I couldn't believe. It was so hard to believe that my muscle pop was pulled again because my body, I was in so much pain. The stress on my muscles that week in trying to prepare for this piece, it was too much. So as I continued through the piece, guys, I did not feel the pain. So when the Holy Spirit just said, keep going, he was sustaining me. He was basically letting me know that I got you. I got you. You asked me to hold you and sustain you when you stepped in this pulpit. This is what I'm doing because that's what I asked him to do. I asked him to let them know who I belong to. Let them know who he is. So at one point, as I was getting close to the end, I started running in the pulpit during one specific part of the dance. I ran across the pulpit and I was jumping and everything on the same leg. No pain medication on the same leg. He was still sustaining me at this point. Guys, when I made it to the end of the dance, I bowed down. I was bowing down to my Father. When I went down at the end of the dance, was bowing down to my Father because I was so grateful. I was thanking the Holy Spirit because I felt like I had gone through hell that week with my body. I felt like a cripple that week because my side was hurting. I couldn't move certain ways, and I couldn't even walk straight because I couldn't put the pressure on my leg. And here I was. I made it through the piece all the way through, jumping, running. I did all of that. And at this point, the Holy Spirit was letting me know that I did that. I was there for you. So when I went down, I promise you, I didn't want to get back up because I was just so grateful that I made it through. It was done. So when I finally got up and I started walking out of the pulpit, when I stepped down out of the stairs, the young lady I was supporting, I gave her a hug immediately. Guys, after I made it to her and gave her a hug, I could no longer walk. The Holy Spirit let me know through that whole ministry piece in that pulpit that he was there. That was something that came upon me once I started the piece like no other. It was like I was there. I could see people in the room, but I really couldn't see people in the room. It was like he was covering me. He was all over me during that piece. And after I stepped out of that pulpit, I could no longer walk. I couldn't put pressure on that leg. The pain came back like no other. And then one of my friends, when she saw me, she quickly came down the aisle to get me and help carry me. I used her to hop to get down the aisle so I wouldn't put any pressure on that leg. But guys, the Holy Spirit let me know at that point that he was there. When I told her what happened, what transpired, she could not believe it because she said that when she watched me, she said the glory of God was all over me. She said that she had no clue that I pulled a muscle or that my muscle popped at that point because she said there was never a point when I stopped or hesitated. But in my mind during the ministry piece, I hesitated. I felt like there was a point in my mind. I thought my body, but the Holy Spirit had my body. So in my mind, when I was thinking, okay, I paused, what do I do? Well, in reality, I never paused. I continued throughout the ministry piece as if nothing happened. And so this is my testimony for the Holy Spirit. And of course, I don't mind testifying on his behalf because he's been there for me time and time again. There were so many other times in my life when he sustained me, when he helped me through something, even when it was something that I did not deserve or I got myself in trouble. He helped me to get out of it. He is awesome. And so I would like to say before the court that if you don't know who he is, you need to get to know him, especially during a time such as this. You need the Spirit of God to guide you through your situations, to uphold you, to comfort you as you go through this thing called life. He is my everything. He is always here with me, no matter what. And I love him for it.
Thank you, Miss Brown.
As you can see, the experience Vivian had during this event would have gone differently had the Holy Spirit not been present. There were no magic tricks, Science can't explain this away, and Vivian fears God too much to tell a lie. There is no other explanation outside of the power of the Holy Spirit moving through her and sustaining her during this dance. The Holy Spirit gave her the power to achieve what she would not have been able to achieve on her own. The defense rests its case. Thank you.